I want to play through a little thought experiment with you real quick. Payday 3. What was the first thought that came to your mind? Was it positive? Was it negative? Did you feel indifferent? Do you feel an air of exhaustion anytime you even just hear or see it? In which case, ooh, use the logo! Oh! Anyway, in case you've been paying attention, you've probably noticed an absence. As I've mentioned in the past, it's getting increasingly difficult to come up with topics to talk about for a game that, whenever I admit that I'm passionate for it, leaves me looking like a pathetic nerd. Especially once you consider that I've spent half of my life playing this game. Now imagine if I was in Team Fortress 2 instead. I don't want to end up looking like yet another K-Nolly clone. And I'd also like to really avoid becoming a Payday Lucky lolcow lookalike, but I still follow the game's development, both for the second game, but equally the third one. It's not an unpopular opinion to say that Payday 2 finds itself in a genuinely really good spot right now. It's getting fixed up, it's receiving some significant upgrades, and even some additional content. In saying that, it's also important to note that a lot of people have kinda just played through most of the game's offerings, and that while it's getting fixed up, it's still far from being perfect. I have had a little bit of a reputation of dragging this game through the mud, but I hope that people understand that it comes from a place of passion. I love this franchise, and I want the best for it, and for the longest time, I just didn't really think that this game was in an acceptable state. But that's for another video, if I ever end up coming around to it. What some people seemingly still gloss over, despite the fact of how public it's been, Payday 2 is being updated by a separate studio from Starbreeze themselves, Sidetrack Games. A group of very talented and dedicated modders gone diesel engine wizards, unfucking mistakes of the past and making sure the game supports modern hardware for the next couple of years. So, what is Starbreeze doing exactly, and where does Payday 3 find itself currently? As I've said, while I wasn't uploading any videos, I was mostly just spectating from my heist chair. But occasionally I still found myself trying the new updates. After all, I am morbidly curious to see where the direction for this game is headed. And I have come to the conclusion that for as much changes that are made, just as much stays the same. Before I elaborate on that, it's time for a little change of pace. I would like to call this segment, What the fuck is up, Hibscord? I've asked my community on Discord, the Hibscord, for questions that I'm going to answer in my next video. This next video is now. So, question number 1. From Specty. Why is your name Flower? That one's a pretty hard one to answer. So, my full legal name is Fresh Cut Flower, and if you take the fresh cut away to make it a lot shorter, it just becomes Flower. The next question is from Punish Bernadetta. How are you so Segoy? I don't speak Spanish. The next one is from Crumb. What games are welcome and aren't welcome? And why is the only game not welcome Deadlock? Days Without Deadlock mentioned 0. Alright, so this was the questions and answers segment. If you have any additional questions, make sure to stop by the Hibscord or leave them down in the comments below. I'm happy to answer just about anything, even if it's what kind of food you should have for breakfast. You should grab Mexican food, by the way, if you haven't. Alright, back on topic. Payday 3 has basically changed every major underlying system. Has changed its loadout menu twice, constantly tweaks certain number values every other update, has gone from relying on dedicated servers to only kinda relying on them and supporting peer-to-peer, which still has major issues of its own, such as checking back with the host to see if the client has taken damage, which under poor network conditions can leave everyone equally parts fed up and frustrated, and still, I find it hard to say that the game is in a good place. For how many systems were promised to be the groundwork for future major reworks, you'd think that the entire game would feel entirely different, and in certain parts it does. If you are a returning player who has played at launch and comes back now, or are entirely new to this entry, you'll definitely feel the streamlined progression, you'll see the quest lines to unlock cosmetics, and you might even enjoy some of the new content. But you'll also most definitely feel the incredibly restrictive loadouts with the super unflexible skill system and the unfinished Armor 2.0 scraps. Talking about Armor 2.0, it should be noted that outside of the foreplater, there's still no real grace period after your armor breaks, which in a game where there's up to 20 comps on your screen at any given time, with all of them being able to hit you at 100% accuracy on the highest difficulty and without the need to reload, and no real push and pull mechanics where cops basically rush you all the time without them taking cover themselves or trying to pretend to show any form of intelligence or strategy outside of occasionally punching up in your specials. Okay, take a breather. No need to repeat the same things I've been saying for the past 3 years. It is incredibly frustrating to see so many unnecessary things being changed, with systems being tweaked in a way where the ultimate outcome doesn't really do the game or its players any favors, and the most important pieces are still lacking or need a handful of tweaks in order to make the overall game 1,000 times more enjoyable. This is not something where I can fault the community. This is not something where I can blame influencers or the players themselves. These are things that are basic game design that I feel should have been caught many years ago. Something that we've taken for granted, essentially, and obviously noticed missing, even if we weren't quite able to put our hands on them. I can play Payday 3. It's very much a playable game. With friends, I can play on very hard and talk about which Deadlock character probably gives the best head. It's an okay time, even if I find myself incredibly unstimulated during it and grow bored of it quite quickly. But it fills a hole that Payday 2 had left when I moved past it. A time waster where I can mostly socialize with friends. This is where I then once again mention the underbaked social features in Payday 3. How there's just no real lobby system, how impersonal everything feels in comparison to the stereotypes of people that you'd meet in Payday 2 public lobbies. So, 3 years in, and with all these changes, we still have a poor sense of community despite the fact that the game is more alive than it had ever been, a poorly thought out armor system, a poorly put together Skills 2.0 system, a handful of poorly designed levels that are just now getting touched up to be slightly less poorly designed, topped off with incredibly awful difficulty scaling. If you religiously play Death Sentence 1 Down and Payday 2 and think to yourself that Payday 3 Overkill is super easy and that I shouldn't complain about it, you're likely the reason why members of the opposite and maybe even same sex are repulsed by you. You also fail to understand how poorly the difficulties in Payday 3 really scale. Even with the new heat mechanic, playing Overkill solo in current Payday 3 feels like a chore. While I find the lack of crutch skills somewhat refreshing, I don't ever feel like I'm making any progress in killing. As for every dead cop, another 2 pop up on my screen. I am obviously outnumbered, but I also feel helpless as I sometimes take unavoidable damage even behind cover. On very hard, however, I can literally play without any skills and maybe go down once or twice if the dozer spawns are feeling frisky that day. Do you find Overkill easy in Payday 3? Do you find it too hard? Let me know down in the comments, I'm curious. Making a game difficult but also making it fair is a challenge, but I think the best way to avoid making it harder for yourself is just to make the jump between difficulties seem natural. Overkill should not feel 3 times harder than very hard, which in turn feels maybe slightly harder than the base difficulty. If, however, you choose to make the highest difficulty oh so much more difficult in a way where it almost feels bullshit, maybe you should clarify that it's on purpose, by luring in masochists with rewards that make sitting through these challenges rewarding. Contracts that require you to get 100 kills with a revolver are needless time stretchers. Reward difficult tasks that signal to the player at a glance that you're getting yourself into a highly difficult mission for a reward and you can show off to other players. Like the crystal charm for cooking all bags of meth perfectly on cook-off, just maybe slightly less tedious and maybe not tied to a heist that had 10 different soft lock states on launch. Payday 3 is slightly better, but not much. It needs to fix a lot of things, lays a lot of groundwork for future changes, lays off the people who were in charge of laying said groundwork, only for new people to have no idea what said groundwork was meant for. It's an almost hopeless cycle that makes me wish I could just move on already. But this is my gaming hyperfixation. This is the community I always come back to. This is the game that I wish I could introduce my other friends to, and show them just how cool it really was, and still could be. But in order for that to happen, the community needs to not just accept changes, but scrutinize them, point things out that aren't good enough, and ask for fixes for problems that desperately need improvements. You shouldn't settle for less just because it's different from what we had. If you're truly passionate for something, you should be able to criticize what you hate about the things you love. If you have ideas of your own on how to improve this game, write your own videos, spark discourse, add things to the conversation and get the community talking. We need this discourse and we need compromise. We need to understand what's wrong with the game and we need to find fixes that aren't just make the game suck less and add my favorite character. If you liked this video, please leave a like and maybe subscribe to my channel. I'm still planning on branching out again, much like I did with my GTA 5 video, so if you like what I do more than you like the game that I mainly cover, then please let me know by supporting me along the way. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to take care of yourself. Stay floral.